Hey everyone, it's Chuck Smoot back again with another installment of conversations about BGLOs. And today we're going to talk about BGLOs and Sigma Pi Phi, or the Boule. We'll talk about the relationship between the organizations and address some of the rumors, concerns, myths, what have you. Before I get into it, always remember to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe. Always feel free to leave a comment or send me a DM. And to keep up with future episodes, make sure you subscribe. Also, remember you can follow me on Twitter at the Rebel Deuce. That's TheRebelDeuce. So let's get into it. Sigma Pi Phi was founded by 6 men in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on May 15th, 1904. It was created to be a source of professional support for men who were already out in the world working, to be a networking and support organization. It is the first Black fraternity. As obviously I'm an Alpha, so you may hear Alpha say, we are the first of all Black Greeks, or we're the granddaddy of them all, things that we've always said, but that refers to Black college Greek letter organizations. In terms of Black fraternities, Sigma Pi Phi is one of the first, although the reason I say one of the first is that technically there were other organizations that existed prior to the founding of Sigma Pi Phi. They just did not last. I referenced one of those organizations in the very first video as being kind of a starter information for one of the founders of Alpha Phi Alpha. So even Sigma Pi Phi isn't the first, but in terms of the organizations that have lasted, Sigma Pi Phi is the first Black fraternity. I am unaware if there is a comparable organization, sorority organization, to Sigma Pi Phi, but that's really the first. And it was started, again, like I said, as a professional organization for people who needed that extra support in their professional lives. We have to remember, we are talking about the turn of the 20th century, where the racial climate was radically different than what it is now, where Jim Crow was in full effect, where sometimes people had problems, particularly if you were doctors, lawyers, insurance agents, or professional of any type. Some of the need for support and to connect with others was paramount, particularly depending on where you lived. So this is what they decided they wanted to create. Part of the purpose of the organization can be found in what's stated on their website, that they say they take from the preamble to their constitution. And that reads, "Be it resolved that a society be organized for the purpose of binding men of like qualities into a close, sacred, fraternal union, that they may know the best of one another, and that each in this life may to his full ability aid the other, and by concerted action bring about those things that seem best for all, that cannot be accomplished by individual effort." We have to remember there were a lot of people, particularly within the Black community, turn of the 20th century, who were doing things on an individual basis, who were advocating and working towards betterment, particularly for Black people. And apparently the founders of Sigma Pi Phi believe that as a unit, that there was strength in unity, to paraphrase. It started off, as I said, as a professional organization, and it also started off as by invitation only. So you had to be invited to become a member of the organization, which is in contrast to the Black Greek letter organizations. where anyone could petition for membership, and the way it still is. So that is still the way Sigma Pi Phi operates. One of the things that I think there are so many questions about this organization is that historically they've been very secretive. They really did not start taking a more public posture until about the early 1980s, between about 1980 and 1982, where they purposely started revealing themselves, talking about their organization, what they do, their plans, what have you. And so that's really when a lot of people began to become familiar with the organization, although people in certain other circles obviously knew about it through friends, or if you were in a black fraternity or sorority, you probably knew someone who was in the Boule, or maybe had gone to an event or something like that. But once they started going more public, I think that is what created some of the problems with people who had never heard of it before, and understanding they'd been around for a number of years, thinking, well, what have they been up to? Why have they been secret so long? What do they have to hide? Which is a similar complaint that is levied against Black Greek organizations. The reality is they chose to operate in a private manner, and really, technically, there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we have this attitude that everything must be told to everybody. And when the reality is, not everything is for everybody. Some things are meant to be private. Some things are meant to be shared within a particular group. And I do understand some of the discomfort that goes along with that, because people, you want to know, what are they doing? How they operate? Why are they operating? Things like that. But that privacy does not equal negative intent or ill intent. It just means that they chose to operate in that fashion. Also, the other thing that distinguishes Sigma Pi Phi from a lot of other organizations is, they don't wear letters. They don't do some of the things that the college fraternities do, or don't even do some of the things that the Masons do. And the Masons sometimes can be accused of being very secretive and very guarded. And their programs, the way they raise money and who they support, is often done very quietly. So I think those things, like I said, because of the private and secretive nature of the organization, that has created an air of mistrust between the organization and the community at large. So one of the other parts that I think is problematic for people at times is because of using the name Boule. So Boule, depending on your definition, means either Council of Noblemen or Council of Chiefs. And that's really a very elitist name to adopt, almost something saying, well, we're smarter, or we know better, or something like that. At least that is the way I think it has been interpreted by many individuals. And so just the adopting of that moniker, a moniker they do not shy away from, has created a lot of questions and problems for those in the outside community. Now, it's fair to mention that a couple of the other Black Greek organizations use the term Boule for their conventions or some of their meetings or the like. So it's not a term that's even specific to Sigma Pi Phi, but it is something that has been used, and it is a terminology that some people really are uncomfortable with. Now, specifically regarding BGLOs and Sigma Pi Phi, none of the founders of any of the Black fraternities were members of the Boule at the creation of the Black fraternities. As I mentioned earlier, you had to be a professional, somewhat established in your field before you could even be considered for membership. So I've heard sometimes that, several of the members of the black fraternities were in the Boule, or that they were chosen by the Boule to start the organizations. When the reality is, and as I briefly referred to in the first video, at least with the founders of Alpha, they were not aware of the creation of Sigma Pi Phi until about 3 or 4 years after Alpha was founded. So really, Sigma Pi Phi didn't come onto Alpha's radar probably until about, remembering Alpha was founded in 1906. They probably did not come on Alpha's radar until about 1908, 1909, somewhere in there. So the notion that the Boule seeded the black fraternities is somewhat inaccurate. Well, not somewhat inaccurate. It really is inaccurate. I think there is a desire to draw a correlation because, Sigma Pi Phi is a fraternity. We have Black Greek Letter Fraternities using Greek letters, all that stuff. So obviously, there are black folks doing this, so there must be a correlation. And there really is none. Now, to be honest, some of the founders of the Black Greek organizations and some of their early members did go on to become members of the Boule. And even one of the Boule founders, Henry Minton, would later go on to become a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. There was and there would be a mutual respect between the organizations where one would want to join the other. I know several people who are in the Boule, and they speak very, very highly of the organization when asked. Very seldom will they volunteer that information. But there has been that correlation relationship. Another thing that I've heard and I've seen is the charge that the crest of Sigma Pi Phi foreshadows or really highlights their relationship with the other Black Greek organizations. This is one of the more ridiculous claims that I've ever heard. And for the main fact that the crest for Sigma Pi Phi was done and finished and completed by no later than June of 1904. Let's just go start with Alpha. The founders of Alpha Phi Alpha were still they weren't even in college at that time. Some of the founders of Kappa Alpha Psi and Omega Psi Phi also would not have been in college. And maybe even the founders of Phi Beta Sigma may even still have been in high school at that time. So the notion that the Sigma Pi Phi had this, prescient vision, far-reaching vision that they were going to create all these organizations, there's no evidence to suggest that. And when you look at the crest for Sigma Pi Phi, you can go on their website and see it. I personally can't see how one would draw the connection. It makes no sense to me. I've looked several times over the years trying to discern a connection. I've just never seen it. I can't find it. So that's just, one of those things that, kind of came up and is one of the conspiracy theories that holds no merit. So, and that's really, to be honest, that's really the long and the short of it. I think people want to trot out the Boule as a very elitist organization, but, even by their own admission, they are kind of elitist. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying you want an organization to have the best and brightest, to go out and recruit those whom you think are doing well in the community and can be a benefit to your organization. Personally, for me, I don't see why that's a problem. And there has never been any indication that Sigma Pi Phi has been involved in anything nefarious, anything negative, any way of holding down elements of Black culture simply because they are a secretive organization, even though they have become more public. That raises questions. And honestly, from where I sit, that is the bulk of, not the bulk, but that is the genesis of the criticisms against Sigma Pi Phi. So, really there you have it. Sigma Pi Phi and the Black Greek organizations, they are autonomous organizations. They do not report, as I mentioned in the previous episode talking about Freemasonry. There's rumors that the BGLOs have to report to the Boule. Again, patently not true. Does not happen. There's never been any incident. Sigma Pi Phi is not a part of the National Panhellenic Council, or called NPHC. They don't have a seat on that council. They have no input. So there is no reporting, no relationship. It is not a parent organization to the Black Greek Letter organizations. Period, point blank, the end. People will have their own conspiracies, and they will come up with a lot of things to, in their view, show a relationship. But I am here to tell you that relationship does not exist. So I'm going to wrap this up. I do want to thank you for watching. If you have any comments, questions, you want to, challenge me on something, feel free to leave a comment in the comments, or you can DM me. Please remember to hit like and on the video, subscribe. There will be other videos in these topics coming up soon. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, the Rebel Deuce, TheRebelDeuce. And thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.